Hi and welcome to this Cinema 5D hands-on look on the newly announced Canon C100 Mark II, which is an unexpected facelift of the entry-level cinema camera from Canon. The announcement of the C100 Mark II was unexpected because the original C100 was the last one to be added to the Canon cinema lineup of cameras, where the first one was the C300 and then the C500 and the C100 coming in at the very last. So it's very clear that both the C300 and the 500 are prone to be updated in the very near future as well. Especially considering the very tough competition Canon is right now facing with the Sony FS7, which shoots 4K internally and is much cheaper than the C300, which doesn't do any 4K at all. But for now, let's get back to the C100 Mark II and actually compare it to its predecessor. Here are the most obvious visual changes that you can see on the body. First of all, we have a considerably larger viewfinder, which is comparable to the one on the C300. It's just a tiny bit smaller, but for the first time on the C100, this one is of a high quality and you can actually use it for critical focusing. The second biggest obvious change is the new swivel screen that they built in. It's a completely newly designed OLED screen, which is of a much higher quality than on the C100 and, which is even more important in my opinion, it's fully rotatable. So for the first time you can actually use this camera in different angles, which was not possible with the C100. It's very convenient that the menu and some other buttons are now directly beneath the screen, including a little joystick which allows you to operate that menu and other settings in a very intuitive way. That's very nice. The camera now even comes with a built-in microphone, not just in the detachable grip like the original C100, but even in the body itself. And that's great, because now you can get rid of the grip if you don't need it and if you're just looking for reference audio. And that further supports one of the C100's biggest strengths, which is low-profile shooting. So it means you can get very small with this camera and shoot in places where you would not be able to shoot with other cameras. And now you even have reference audio on it. The C100 Mark II features the same sensor as its predecessor, but they use a better processing unit to actually deal with that image data. The new Digic DV4 processor promises to produce better images in the end. I did a little test with a 20,000 ISO setting on the C100 Mark I and the Mark II and compared the results. I used the exact same lens on both cameras and the same aperture, same ISO, same everything. And you can clearly see that there is much lower noise in the C100 Mark II in the same settings, which is very nice. So Sony is traditionally much better than Canon with offering higher frame rates in their cameras. At the very least, the C100 Mark II can now do 60p in 1080, which is much better than actually no slow motion, which we had in the C100, the original one, and the C300, where we can only do 720p 60. So at least that's a tiny step, but there is a lot to improve on this in this regard when it comes to Canon cameras. The C100 Mark II also introduces MP4 next to AVC HD codec into the camera. So now you can even record MP4 at the same time with AVC HD, for example to generate small proxy files at the same time on the fly. The maximum internal bitrate is now 35 megabit, which however can only be used with 50 or 60p. If you want to have higher bitrate and better quality than 420 color space, you still have to rely on an Aptmus or similar recorder, and then you can record a 422 signal out of the HDMI port. A nice new feature is also the built-in Wi-Fi, which allows you to control the camera via smartphone or tablet, and also even remotely transfer files via FTP server. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to test it out, but I'm keen to look at that again once we get another production unit of the camera. The dual pixel autofocus and face detection features that used to be paid upgrades on the original C100 are now built in. And that's very nice if you use equipment like gimbals, for example, where you cannot always rely on manual focus. To sum this up, it's definitely nice to see Canon improve a lot of small details in its entry-level cinema camera, with regards to usability and handling especially. But it's definitely just an incremental update. And it's quite a shame that there is no 4K and no higher frame rates than 60p in this camera still. So that leaves a lot to be desired of a new Canon C300, which I'm sure will be introduced soon as well. Thanks for watching and see you soon here at Cinema 5D.